You ever look at a plant and just wonder, how does it work? I mean, it's stuck in one spot, it can't go get a drink, it can't grab a snack, but inside every single plant there's this hidden dynamic world. It's a transport system that solves problems that would honestly stump a whole team of engineers. So let's dive into this incredible and seemingly impossible journey.
So let's start with a really big question. Literally, how does a tree that's taller than the Statue of Liberty manage to get a drink? I mean, how does it get water from its roots, deep in the ground, all the way up to its very top leaves? There's no heart, there's no mechanical pump. So what's the secret?
And this picture really drives home the scale of the challenge we're talking about. These are coast redwoods, absolute giants that are fighting gravity every single second of their lives. It's a staggering feat of natural engineering, and we're about to break down exactly how they pull it off.
Okay, so this gets us to the heart of it, the fundamental problem every single plant has to solve. It can't move to find food or water, right? So it has to bring all those resources to itself. But where do those resources even come from?
Okay, now get this, because it completely flips what most of us think. You'd imagine a giant tree is made mostly from stuff it pulls out of the soil. But it's not. Almost all of its physical mass is literally built out of thin air, just by grabbing carbon dioxide. And knowing that makes its internal delivery systems for water and minerals even more critical.
All right, so let's follow the water. The journey starts underground, in the root system. And this is not just some passive straw sitting in the dirt. Oh no, it's an incredibly sophisticated and selective filter that decides exactly what gets into the plant.
The front line of this whole operation? These tiny little things called root hairs. Now these aren't the main roots themselves. They're microscopic extensions that just explode the surface area, creating this enormous sponge to soak up every last drop of water and dissolved minerals from the soil. And the scale here, it's just wild. If you could take all the root hairs from one single humble sunflower and lay them end to end, they would stretch for miles. It's a vast, hidden network that's constantly exploring the soil for resources.
So once the water and minerals are at the root, they've got two ways to get to the central plumbing system. They can go through the cells, that's the intracellular route, or they can sneak between the cell walls, the extracellular route. But, and this is super important, that second, easier route eventually hits a serious roadblock.
And that roadblock is called the Casparian strip. You can think of it like a bouncer at a club or a security checkpoint at the airport. It's this waxy layer that completely blocks the easy path between the cells. It forces everything, every molecule of water, every mineral ion, to pass through a cell membrane to be screened. So the bottom line is, nothing gets into the plant's main plumbing without proper clearance.
Okay, so the water has made it past security. It's in the pipes, what scientists call the xylem. Now, how in the world does it get to the top? This is where a silent but incredibly powerful force comes into play.
The secret engine that drives this entire process is something called transpiration. And really, it's just a fancy word for evaporation. As each water molecule evaporates from a leaf, it creates a tiny bit of tension, and that tension pulls on the molecule right behind it. It's exactly like sipping from a very, very, very long straw.
And this whole long straw thing only works because of two amazing properties of water you see here. First up is cohesion. That's the tendency of water molecules to stick to each other, kind of like tiny magnets. This creates an unbroken chain of water all the way from the roots to the leaves. Then there's adhesion, which just means water also sticks to the walls of the xylem tubes, and that helps hold the whole column of water up against gravity, so it doesn't just slide back down. So where is all this evaporation happening? Well, it's all taking place through thousands of tiny little pores on the leaves called stomata. On the left, you see an open stoma. It's letting CO2 in for photosynthesis. But on the right, it's closed, which is what the plant does when it needs to conserve water. These tiny pores are basically the gatekeepers of the leaf, and they're in a constant balancing act between the need to breathe in CO2 and the need to drink by holding on to water.
And how do they open and close? It is such a cool trick, and it all comes down to osmosis. All osmosis means is that water naturally moves toward an area with more stuff dissolved in it. So here's what the plant does. These guard cells pump in a bunch of potassium ions. Water, just following the rules, rushes in after them. This makes the cells swell up and bow outwards, which pops the pore open. To close it, they just pump the ions back out, water leaves, and the cells go limp. It's a simple, elegant system for managing that trade-off between food and water.
All right, so that's the water system, this amazing suction pump powered by the sun. But what about food? The plant's got to eat, right? It makes sugar in its leaves through photosynthesis, but it needs to get that energy everywhere else, down to the deepest root tip, up to the newest flower bud. How does it do that?
Well, that is the job of the phloem. You can think of it as the plant's personal two-way food delivery service. It moves this sugar-rich liquid from what's called a sugar source, anywhere sugar is being made, like a sunny leaf, to a sugar sink, which is anywhere that needs energy or is storing it, like a growing fruit or a root.
So how does it work? Well, it's not a suction system like the xylem. It's actually a pressure system. It's all about pushing, not pulling. Here's what happens. At the source, the plant pumps sugar into the phloem. That high concentration of sugar draws water in, which builds up a ton of pressure. Then, down at the sink, the plant takes the sugar out. Water follows the sugar out, the pressure drops, and, well, the sap naturally flows from the high-pressure area to the low-pressure area. So clever!
So let's just put these two side by side for a second, because this is really the key takeaway. You've got the xylem, which is a one-way street for water. It's driven by a pull from the top. Then you've got the phloem, a two-way street for sugar, driven by a push from wherever the sugar is being made. Two totally different problems, two brilliant, totally distinct solutions.
So why does all this amazing biology matter to us? Well, it turns out that for thousands of years, we've gotten pretty good at tapping into this incredible plant plumbing, often without even realizing what we were doing.
And just remember what the plant is building with all this stuff. The vast bulk of it, a whopping 90%, is just carbon and oxygen, mostly from the air. Another 6% is hydrogen from water. But that transport system is also responsible for painstakingly delivering all those other essential little bits and pieces that it needs to build everything.
And here are a couple of perfect examples of how we tap into it. When we collect maple sap to make syrup, we're actually hijacking the xylem. In early spring, the tree sends sugar stored in its roots up to feed the new buds, and we just stick a tap in and catch some of that flow. When we tap a rubber tree, we're tapping into a completely different system of special vessels that move latex around.
I mean, the list just goes on and on. We harvest sugar sinks like potatoes and sugar beets. We eat storage roots like carrots and turnips. We use the sap from plants like aloe vera for all sorts of things. We're just completely and deeply connected to these silent, powerful transport systems every single day.
So it all kind of leaves you with this one big question, right? Plants mastered silent, solar-powered, gravity-defying transport millions and millions of years ago. By really digging in and understanding these unbelievably elegant and efficient systems, what new solutions might we discover for our own, much, much noisier world?